It's alright, it's only a scraper. I know what you're thinking, because I'm back into rails house now, the proper rails house stuff, rather than pinballs and oiling machines and things like that. I will come back to that. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where's the broom, Ralph? There it is, it's still alive. Welcome back to the indoor workshop here at Rails House. As you can see, in the last Rails House I was chasing these sockets out. It's always a messy job and you get a lot of dust. It doesn't matter how you do this job, you get dust. And actually, in fact, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day because I used to hammer and bolster, which I think actually creates less dust, even though it's really hard work. I was absolutely soaked in sweat by the time I finished 3 of these. But using a hammer and bolster does seem to be the less dusty way. And if others say, oh, I can do them in 3 minutes with an angle grinder, I thought, yeah, and about 4 hours trying to get the dust out of the room. I know, I've been there and done it. So personally, I prefer hammer and bolster. I've got this one there. This one doesn't actually have any switches on this one. But it's going to be mostly... there will be an extension lead run out of this, and it'll be for the PC and various other things. But I thought it was useful to have some USB sockets this end. Same over in this corner. That one's all chased up. The only thing I've got a minor bit of touching on the skirting to do there, just to neaten that up. But otherwise that socket's also in. But this is a radial, by the way, not a ring. With a ring circuit. It comes out of the consumer unit into the socket, into the socket, into the socket, into the socket, and then back to the consumer unit. Well, we don't need to do that these days. I don't run ring circuits at all. It was a way to save on copper during the Second World War, because the sort of appliances we had back then weren't running on 5 volt. We weren't running on little USB cables. It may well have been an electric fire in a bedroom, that sort of stuff. So you needed a ring circuit that would cope with that sort of wattage. Nowadays we don't have that problem. And also consumer units, or fuse boxes if you're not familiar with them, have an array of MCBs. So you've got one to protect every single circuit. And I've got about 16 in mine, so you know, there's no limit to it really. So I'm just simply running a radial circuit, so it comes out of the consumer unit into the socket, into the socket, into the socket, and to wherever I decide I'm going to terminate it. In this case, this radial circuit will be supplying this back room workshop, and it will probably supply the front room as well, because there's really not going to be much plugged in there of any consequence. So I think one radial circuit will do, protected by a 20 amp fuse. But I've obviously got the cables in the wall because I've chased them in. I did use conduit, and it comes out behind that skirting under the floor, and there it is. You see, this is the cable that I've got to take to the consumer unit, but obviously I've got to get it under the floorboards. That's why it's laying over at the top of the moment, because I haven't run it under. But I've got quite a run, and I should come out under that board there. Most electricians use a kind of stiff piece of wire that they can run through, hook the cable on and pull it through. I haven't got one of those, but what I do have is conduit. And I found, because this will take 3 cables, so it'll go nice and loose in there. But basically, I will bend it up, feed it through there, all the way to the end there. Then grab the end of that cable, feed it through here, then pull out the conduit, and the cable will be there. So that's how I'm going to do that. So welcome back. Hopefully this weekend we can make a lot of progress and start thinking about getting this floor down, which I'm keen to do now, and get everything else out. What I will have to do, I've swept and mopped a great deal. It takes a long time to get dust and grit out of a room, it really does. But I need these boards dust free and clean, because when I come to put the carpet tiles down, you need self-adhesive pads where four corners meet. I was talking to listening to my brother-in-law Steve, and he said he bought a load of carpet tiles. Big mistake, he said. They all came up at the edges and it ended up in the loft. That's because he hasn't used two-sided tape where four tiles join. If you do that, they won't lift, and that's how they do it professionally. You're not going to lay carpet tiles on it. Otherwise, they'll look all right for the first, I don't know, month, but they will bend up and then you'll be in a right mess with it. They'll slide about all over the place. So I'll need very clean floor to do that. And then we can start thinking about getting some furniture in. And because this is a workshop room, what I'm going to look out for is I've got a large desk that I'm thinking, well, actually it's a table that I'm going to fit here. There'll be a batten along the wall. One edge of the table will rest on that and be screwed to it, and the front edge will just have the 2 feet. And the reason I want this big desk, I got it off my friend Tracy. She said, "Oh, do you want this?" And I thought, yeah, because one of the legs was broken, but that didn't matter, you see. And I thought, yeah, that would make a good work surface, because sometimes when you're working on things, you need a big area to work in. So we thought it would be a good idea to put the table over this side of the room. The other job I've got to do is, because my son uses a lot of graphic apps, and we've got a computer for that already, thanks to my eldest son, Michael, and we'll be able to install that in here. But I thought, rather than run off Wi-Fi, which doesn't really give you the full network speed, because I've got the maximum internet speed here, it would be better on Ethernet cables, because you will get a faster connection. So I will need a couple of Ethernet boxes, sockets rather, one over here and one over that side of the room, and somewhere, I'm not sure where we're going to do it, I shall put a network box. And the idea is that then we can hook into the printer into the circuit and be able to print if we need to. I don't need it for my computer upstairs, because I print so seldom anyway. If I need to print, I'll just come down with the file down here and print it off the computer down here, which will work fine. So I do need a couple of network boxes, and again, I'm not going to tuck those down behind the skirting. It's just not worth it. I should just use small clips for that, and may even run it across the top of the skirting, whatever. You won't really see it. So that's where we are. So I think the next job is to get that conduit under the board. Right, let's lift up this board this end. And because I can't really do this one-handed, I'm going to have to do that off camera, but this stuff flexes quite a bit, and then we'll be able to just push it through all the way through to the other end. So I'll do that first. So there's the conduit this end, and the end of this cable. I can then feed down through that, push this whole thing the other way and pull it out the other end. Right, let's get feeding that down. There we go. In fact, you don't actually have to feed the cable all the way through it. If it wedges tight, that's fine, as long as you can still pull the conduit through. And now all I've got to do is just pull the rest of the cable through. So I'll do that, and because I had a little bit left still on the reel, but I just unreeled the lot, and then whatever I've got left over, I should just cut that off and wind it back onto the reel. Now we'll just screw that down then. So there we are, we're up to there. Now I've got to go that way, but that one's not too bad. Best laid plans and all that. Yeah, I say not too bad. Actually, it was a bit of a minefield. The problem I've got is, let me talk. So there's my consumer unit down there. Right. So I've got to get it from there over to there. So what I've done, I found the best way to do it is run some trunking up here, which I can close. You know, it's got a lid on it, so I could actually run another one if I want. I brought it up across the top of this door, and we're dangling. That's the one. I've given it ample room. It's more than enough to go to the consumer unit. And I shall probably, this is a Sunday by the way, and I shall probably do that on Friday next week when I'm off, because I want to show my son what I'm doing here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. This here is the old bell from the old bell push. I don't think I'm going to need that anymore. All the switch that goes with it, that can all come out. But what I'll do is I'll put some more trunking. Do this tidy, you know. Put some more trunking across there, which I'll then be able to drop down to the consumer unit, and then I can get rid of all this, make this tidy. There's nothing wrong with clipping cables up like that, but you know, the idea being that, you know, if anything sharp hits it, if it's in trunking, then it's at least protected. But yeah, that's what we'll do. I shall take it under the stairs. It makes the most sense, really. So that's about where we are on the wiring. Incidentally, and I think I've mentioned this once before, this used to be my father's house, and in fact it used to be my sister Libby's house before that. But this room was very different. In fact, actually, if you go back to some of the very early Ralph's house, you'll see when I was stripping this room of music, and the final day that his piano was played, it wasn't play. It didn't. The guy who played it didn't play the sort of music that my father liked to play. In his latter years, my father really liked Billy Mayle. One of his most famous ones, Billy Mayle, of course, was Marigold. Another one, Black Tulip, is it? I think Black Tulips, yeah. And but he was a good pianist. Unfortunately, as he got older, he lost that ability. It reminds me of TV artist Tony Hart, who I got quite friendly with him in his latter years. And unfortunately, Tony Hart had a stroke and couldn't draw or paint anymore. And Tony said it was the biggest cross he had to bear. And I get that. And I think certainly for my father, it was his biggest love in life was playing the piano. He was very fortunate that as a child he'd had piano lessons. But the only thing about my father is he had somewhat of a loveless childhood, and we think, though we don't know for sure, that he probably had Asperger's syndrome. Certainly one of my sisters had got it, my youngest one. She died some years ago, Roz. She had Asperger's, and it was unpleasant to be around her. Let's put it that way. It wasn't the same when she was young. You know, I used to go on the bus with my sister Roz and have a great day out. But as she got older, she just became plain nasty, or nasty, however you want to pronounce it. But the reason I brought this up is because twice now I've come across a video on YouTube, and I sent it to my sister. And when she saw it, straight away she said, "It's Dad." And I said, "Yeah, but it isn't." But the strange thing is, he looks exactly like my father from the back. And unfortunately, I don't have any video footage of playing the piano, of him playing the piano. And I asked the guy who uploaded this video if he would be kind enough to allow me to show a clip of him playing the piano, to get a good idea of what my father looked like, at least from the back, when he was playing the piano. So here it goes. Yes, it's sad really that I've got the empty space of where I used to play. And for anybody that has had to deal with a house that their parents lived in, one of the hardest things to do is coming to terms with the fact that all the wonderful things that they loved now are irrelevant. And I've had to do this twice now. I've had to do it at my father's house, and I've also had to do it with my mother's house. And throwing all that away is really difficult. It is. I sympathise with anybody who ever has to go through that. Some people say the best thing to do is put everything in storage and go to it when you can deal with it. I think you just have to sift through as much as you can, and then you end up with a pile that perhaps sit in your garage for a while, and eventually you go through that and you just end up with one or two things. And I suppose when I go, it will be exactly the same for my sons. But there's a thought. But that's what my dad looked like when he played the piano. And he looks exactly like him from the back. I know I've gone a bit off the beaten track, but it just reminded me looking at this wall, because this is where his piano was. And above would have been racks and racks. It took in so much music. It absolutely filled this room all the way around. In cupboards absolutely everywhere. That's how passionate he was about playing the piano. There you go. That was my dad. Different day, different job. I'll tell you what I'm doing. These are the double doors that go between the front room and the back room. I mean, I could zoom out, but it doesn't make a lot of difference. But what I was thinking is, I'm stripping this paper off the door, because this will come off with a wallpaper stripper. And my thinking is just paint them white and be done with it. But I was looking at this wallpaper. Look, let me zoom in a bit so you can get an idea of the texture of it. Can you see that? Right. I was looking at it and thinking, who on earth would buy wallpaper like that? Unless you were, I don't know, a little old lady over 70 maybe. Nobody would pick that in a wallpaper shop and think, oh, that's lovely, that paper. We must have that in our lounge. It's just, it's vile, isn't it? So it's going. But it has got that sort of vinyl-y, sort of, not Vimura, but I don't know what you call this stuff. And it comes off easy enough. Well, once you get going with it. But what awful looking wallpaper. Imagine if you'd paid a decorator to do your house with that stuff. Right, that's that switched on. Right, let's go and test the sockets. Yep. It's all good. Yep. Yep. All good. 3 sockets. This arrived through the post from Paul in Liverpool, who very kindly split it from a few that he'd got. I had no idea which coin it took, but what I did notice is it's got this very Art Deco looking top on it, which I thought would go much better on the Genko pinball than the other one that I bought a few weeks back. Then it's deciding what coin it takes. Tried an old penny in it. Nope, too big. 2p, you got no chance because they're all modern coiners. They won't fit these. So I thought, well, possibly it's an American one. I think this was originally American made. What tended to happen with these, they came into the country, and then a couple of companies in London used to convert them to British coinage, or it may have been set up in the US like that. But I noticed when I went down here, scratched into it, see it, 2 shilling, England. So it takes, and a 2 shilling is 28mm, and I measured across that, it is 28mm, and they're about, florins are about, 2mm thick, so it should take a 2 shilling bit. A bit of an odd coinage to use, but because some of these machines are going into work and they're raising money for Great Ormond Street, they can keep a bag of 2 shilling bits in their cash register, and then exchange them for whatever, £1 a go or 50 pence a go, whatever they're going to charge. But it's quite good, this one, because it will not accept anything else except a 2 shilling bit, and that's good in a way, isn't it? Yeah, they're getting like hen's teeth, these things. You don't see them around now. Well, possibly on old laundry machines. I don't know how laundrettes work now. Do they work via credit card? I presume they probably do now. But I remember going down and putting, I don't know, loads of 20p's in the dryer. But this is certainly an old one. Anyway, very pleased with it. Thank you, Paul, for sending this out to me. And that should solve my coin mechanism on the Genko Archer. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.